Hi, my name is Candela, and I am here to talk about how to vote in Iowa. And my original plan was I was going to create a video called How to Effing Vote in Effing Iowa. The reason I was going to do that is because I kind of am a little skeptical on whether or not anybody's actually going to watch this video. It's going to be long because there's a lot of information to cover. And I just don't know if people really have the attention span to watch it unless there's some kind of incentive. So for the other vote, the other video, I am going to pay people $20 to watch the video and tell me how many times they use the F word. But when I told some folks about that idea, they said, well, will you do another video that's a little cleaner without all those cuss words in it? And I was like, yeah, but will anybody watch it? And so my theory is that nobody's going to watch this video, but I said I would do it, so here I am. All right, who am I? My name's Candela, and I'm not really going to give you my whole backstory, but I am going to show you my shirt, which says science is real and Black Lives Matter and no human is illegal and love is love. And it says women's rights are humans' rights, and I agree with that, but I also agree that the rights of people who are trans and non-binary also are human rights, and kindness is everything. So if this is a shirt that you see and you're like, I ain't about that, then you are not my people and this is not your video. And so you might as well not waste your time and just shut it off right now. If you want to get the incentive of the $20 for telling me how many times I say the F word, the answer for this video is zero, hopefully. And if I say it, then hopefully we can edit it out. But if you want the $20 to count how many times I say the F word in the other video, it is, I don't know, it'll be in one of these corners and we'll post it and you can just skip this video and go to that. It's going to be the same information, though that video is going to have a lot more cursing in it and it'll have a nice, scenic background. And this video has this office and we'll have some other slides. So you can tell me which one you like in the comments. Really, the goal is I'm trying to get this to go viral. So like, can you make it like spread it around, get me more than 5 views? We'll see. There are 3 ways to vote in Iowa. One of those is to vote early. One of those is to vote in person on election day. And the third way to vote is to vote by mail. So to run through each of those quickly, and I'm going to share screen because I can. If you check out your county auditor's office, so this is from the Potawatomi County Auditor's Office, and there is a whole lot of information on how to vote. You just this is from Potawatomi County elections, and I just clicked under here, vote, and then how to vote. And so there's information on, again, voting early, voting by mail, and voting on election day. Now, I want to tell you a little bit about voting on election day. In 2020, I voted early, and then I decided that for on election day, I was going to go to all of the polling sites and just hand out bottles of water or just, like cheer people on. I was just so excited about like, yay, let's go vote. And I found that 10 of 14 polling sites. So I literally went to the Secretary of State's website and I printed it off on my handy dandy computer, the 14 sites that were listed for Council Bluffs area, and 10 of those 14 were closed. And I was so angry to find that 10 of them were closed. Now, of the 4 that were left open, one of those had a really, really long line of 2.5 to 3 hours. And then the other 3 were pretty okay. So 3 out of 14 polling sites were running smoothly, and the other 11 out of 14 were not running smoothly. 10 of them closed entirely, and one of them taking 2.5 hours long. So you can vote on election day. Election day this year is November 8th, 2022. So yes, there is a midterm election this year, 2022. And you can vote on that day, and it's possible that you can just very easily go to your Secretary of State or county auditor's office and find the information, or you can check out the apps that are available through various sources, and it's possible that will lead you right to your polling site, and it's possible that it will give you a bit of a runaround. So like, I have no promises, I have no guarantees, I just know that those are your options. A couple of other options are to vote by mail or to vote early. And so voting on election day, voting early, voting by mail, there are 3 options. And it shows that right here, voting early, vote by mail, vote on election day. So I'm going to roll through voting by mail. So how to vote by mail is you get a ballot request form. And that ballot request form looks like this, and it is available on this website. You can go here and click absentee voting and pull up a handy dandy little sheet. Now, if you happen to live in, if you happen to be lucky enough to live in the county that Eric Van Lanker or Joe Miller are auditing, then you can possibly, they actually publish the absentee ballot request in the local newspaper. And so everyone was able to very easily get it through their local newspaper. But if you don't happen to live in one of those counties, then you can still get the absentee ballot request by going to the website, or just, you could just Google, or just whatever your search engine of choice is, absentee ballot request. Fill it out. Now, the rules of filling out the absentee ballot request are you do have to turn it in well before election day, and then you have to pay attention and get your mail. Pay attention to your mail, make sure that you get your ballot in the mail, fill out your ballot. They've created all kinds of extra rules. So you have to turn in your own ballot or mail in your own ballot. You can't just ask your neighbor, friend, parent, whoever, spouse or loved one. You can't ask somebody to do that for you. You have to do it yourself. And then, and you only have a limited amount of time that you can do that. Or if you really are out of town or out of state or someplace else, it has to get mailed back in, and let's hope that the mail runs quickly enough to get that thing in, because if it's not in by a certain time, they won't accept it, and you just lost your opportunity to vote this year, which annoys me to smithereens. But did you catch how I just caught my language there? But I don't get to control these rules. However, I do think it's important that we vote for people who make voting easier, and I'll get to that in a bit. Okay, so there are 3 ways to vote. Vote in person on election day, vote by mail, or the third one is to vote early. And they've got that listed here at the top of the screen here, how to cast your ballot. And that's honestly my favorite way to vote, is to vote early. So to vote early, what do you need to do? You need to find out where your county auditor's office is. And so I'm going to defer you to these couple of other videos that we just found the county auditor's office here in Pottawatomie County. If you don't live in Pottawatomie County, it's not hard to do search engine of choice and find your county auditor's office anyway. They will have a voting from October 19th up through November 7th. November 8th is election day. So early voting is obviously before election day. So October 19th to November 7th, you can vote anytime the office is open. And so I love this because if I plan to go vote on October 19th, and I don't know if life throws curveballs at y'all, but life throws curveballs at me sometimes. And so sometimes I might say, okay, I'm going to vote on October 19th, but then I got to take my cat to the vet, or there's a sick kid, or I'm having car trouble, or I just overslept, or whatever. So many things can throw me off my game sometimes. And so if your life has challenges that can sometimes throw you off your game, and you don't make it on October 19th, well, there's still October 20th or the next day. And so I can, if I miss it that first opportunity, then I can catch it on the second opportunity. I can go on a time when I know that I've got an easier day at work, or when I can rearrange my schedule, or if I have the day off or whatever. And so I can just plan ahead knowing what my schedule is going to hold. And that is honestly my favorite. No matter which way you vote, you're going to fill out the same ballot. Now, when I first learned, I guess I should cover photo ID requirements too. So an additional thing that our GOP legislature pushed through in 2021 was they created some extra photo ID requirements. So it used to be the case that a person could vote because they just were who that they were. And then it used to be the case that a person could vote if they had any ID. So like a student ID, or a YMCA ID, or any of the various IDs where we have to, like, it's my picture, like, there's my picture. It looks just like me. It's got my name on it. It's got my address. Like, seriously, why do I have to go through extra trouble? But Iowa decided that they needed to make it more strict this year. And so the photo ID requirements include that you can use your Iowa driver's license, your non-operator ID, your US passport, your military ID, your VA ID, tribal ID, or the voter ID PIN card. But get this, on the voter ID PIN card, if you happen to have your voter ID card from like 8 years ago or 5 years ago, that one's not going to get it because they reissued some PIN numbers. And so if you don't happen to have your PIN number, your voter ID card no longer counts because it doesn't have that PIN card, in which case you can be, you can't technically be denied your opportunity to vote. You can still fill out a provisional ballot, but they just give you extra hurdles. And so if you happen to be like 50 or 60 or, whatever, you've been voting for a while and you still have your old card from back in the day, or even if you just happen to be 30 and you have your old card from back in the day, yeah, it's no longer valid if you don't have your new PIN card. Now you can call your county auditor's office right now and get a new PIN card. If you live in Pottawatomie County, that number would be 712-328-5700. And make sure that you've got a valid PIN card. All right, so I covered a whole lot of stuff already on this how to vote in Iowa. If you want more information from the auditor's office, you can certainly check out the auditor's website. And if you don't live in Pottawatomie County, you can check out you can still check out Pottawatomie County's website or the auditor of your county or wherever you might choose to get this information. There are lots of great sources. All right, so now that you know how to vote, my big question when I was first thinking about voting wasn't, how do I find the county auditor's office? My biggest question is, what's on my ballot? What the heck am I doing? Okay, so I just want to share with you a little bit about the ballot. This is a sample ballot. This is actually the ballot from 2018. So nothing on this ballot is accurate. Well, okay, very few things on this ballot are still accurate. But it is important to just see, I think it's important to see what a ballot looks like. Now, ballots always go in a specific order. They always start with, our ballots here in Iowa are paper, and they're submitted through a machine, and the machine counts them for us. But there are paper ballots so that if the machine wonks out or whatever for any reason, they can go back through and hand count the paper ballots. So that is, I think that that's a good thing, honestly. So each of the ballots, you'll have these little bubbles and you need to fill them in completely and accurately. You can write in a vote, like on this line, you could write in this vote, and you would also need to fill in the bubble. So if you write in a name, let's say you're going to vote Candela for whatever, and you don't fill in the bubble, you're writing in the name and not actually voting for yourself or whoever it is that you're choosing to vote for. So please fill in the bubble and also write in whoever it is that you feel like you want to write in. Now, the ballots always go in a pretty specific order in that federal information, whoever it is that we're voting for the federal office is first, and they kind of go in order, in ranked order of who's got the biggest office, who's got the next biggest office, and then they'll go through the state offices and then county, or then so state offices that cover the whole state, and then state offices that cover just part of a state, like state Senate districts, and then state House districts, and then county offices. So, and this is what the 2018 ballot looked like, and it says sample. And if you wait till something like October 1st, your county auditor will probably have your sample ballot on the website. I do not know that for sure. I do know that when I have looked up my sample ballots, it didn't always have all of the information that I needed to know, but it will have some of the information, and having some of the information is better than none. And so on this ballot, it was a long 8.5 by 14 size sheet of paper. So it wasn't just regular, office paper. It was the extended length. and it was two-sided, so you needed to vote, you needed to fill out everything that you wanted to fill out on both sides. Now, the deal about the ballot is you don't actually have to fill in every single bubble. If you don't know something, you can skip the things that you don't know, or you can write in things if you don't like any of your choices. So that's an example of the ballot, and it's that long. So who do I think you should vote for? Well, the very first thing that you need to vote, the very first thing on your ballot of who to vote for is the U.S. Senate race. So this year is 2022, and we don't we don't vote for president this year. 2022 is a midterm election. So I think I don't know, 35 or so before I learned what a midterm is. So let me just talk a little bit about midterms. So every 4 years, as you already know, there's a presidential election. And in between, on the, so 2020, there was a presidential election. 2024, there will be a presidential election. 2022, there's not a presidential election, but there's still an election for Senate, House of Representatives, and a bunch of other things. And so that's called the midterm because it's the middle of the presidential term. Okay, so I want to give you a little bit about a story of Betty Stafford. Betty Stafford's not on the ballot, though she should be. She's freaking amazing. So when I was young and I was first learning to vote, I had a lady at my church whose name was Betty Stafford, and I knew that I just kind of thought she knew everything. So I asked her, like, how do you know who to vote for? And she told me that she had been a teacher before she retired, and so she knew the teachers union would have some information about people that they thought voted in line with their values or were supportive of teachers and education. And there were others who voted in ways that hurt or at least didn't help teachers and education. And so that was kind of my first clue of like, oh, I mean, teachers do their homework, right? Like if anybody does their homework, it's the teachers, right? So, so I trusted that I wanted to vote in line with whatever was good for teachers. And then I learned that unions are often voting for whoever's in line for workers. So when it comes to if there's a conflict between the workers and the bosses, the unions are for the workers generally. And so as a person who's been a worker my whole life rather than the boss, I wanted to vote for people who were supportive of workers. And it turns out there are a number of things. So I find that Planned Parenthood is a source of information for who is for women's rights and the rights of people with the uterus to decide for their own body, for their own selves, what to do with their body. And so I could listen to them. I can listen to environmental groups of who to vote for environmental causes that are concerning to me. And so if I just kind of ask enough people, it turns out that life is an open book test. In school you're not allowed to copy, or it's frowned upon or prohibited to copy off your neighbor. But in life you can certainly ask your neighbors and ask informed people that like, what do you think about this, or who's voting for this, or who's voting against it, or who should I vote for, which of the candidates are in line with my values. And as you hear various aspects, then you get more information. So kudos to Betty Stafford. And for the first several times that I listened to her, I went back and did my homework. I was like, oh, well, let me see what they say. And it turns out Betty Stafford, like, she kind of always knew who I should vote for, who was most in line with my values. And she was really honest to tell me when there were two good candidates or two less than good candidates, but they were different. They were good for different reasons, or they were bad for different reasons. And she would tell me that information too. So I encourage you to find someone like that. If I'm not someone like that, find someone like that. And if I am someone like that, you can use this video and share it with everybody, and they can use this information to figure out who to vote for. Okay, so back to who to vote for. Top of the ballot is going to be U.S. Senate race. And so the U.S. Senate race, we've got two choices, and they are Chuck Grassley and Mike Franken. And I knew before I even went into this that I did not approve of Chuck Grassley. Chuck Grassley has been so against so many of the things that I am for, and he is for so many of the things that I am against. Like, he is just like, he would see this shirt and he would not be like, this is not his shirt. He's like, not my people. All right, so what has he done? Well, he voted against the cap on insulin. I mean, like, I'm not diabetic, but like, diabetics need a cap on insulin. Insulin is freaking expensive. It's ridiculous. And so how do you vote against insulin for diabetics? How do you vote against healthcare for people? How do you vote for like private companies versus, okay, anyway, so I can just go on and on and on about Chuck Grassley. Again, like, pull out this shirt, like, here we are. So he's voted against healthcare. He's voted against reproductive rights. He's voted against the cap on insulin. He voted against some infrastructure bills. He just, he's done a couple of good things over the course of his like decades. I don't know, has he been in office like 4 decades or something? So he's done a few good things over the course of his life, but the odds, the stack of his atrocities are just mounting. And so what are the choices? So we got Chuck Grassley or Mike Franken. All right, so who's Mike Franken? Mike Franken is also running for the U.S. Senate. And Mike Franken, for one thing, is for democracy. So he is against insurrections. Go figure, right? He is committed to sign on to the Women's Health Care Act that went through the House this past year. And I actually wore this in his presence, and he's like, "Nice shirt," and I was like, "Yes." So I am definitely voting for Admiral Mike Franken, and his website is Franken for Iowa. So you can just check him out. And yeah, Franken's got my vote. All right, so next on the ballot would be the U.S. House of Representatives. So if you live in my district, so you see this lovely blue area. If you live here, your choices for U.S. House of Representatives are Randall Feenstra, or Ryan Melton. Randall reminds me of that monster on the Monsters Inc. movie. And he kind of is a monster. So a little bit of history. If you know anything about Steve King, so I'm going to back up a second. And by a second, I really mean like a decade. So back in about a decade ago, there was a representative for 4th District whose name was Steve King, and he was a nightmare. So you might have heard of the author Stephen King, who writes about nightmares. Different guy. So the author who writes about nightmares is actually pretty nice. He's a pretty decent human being. But Steve King, the former congressperson, oh, he was a nightmare. He was so misogynist and racist and anti-LGBTQ, and he was so vocal about how people shouldn't get the chance to marry who they want to marry, and just, oh my gosh, so he was awful. Anyway, he's not on the ballot, so why am I going on and on about this? Steve King was awful and loud about it. Feenstra is awful in all the same kinds of voting record ways, but he's quiet about it. He's polite in mixed company. So if I were to happen to be in his presence in this shirt, he probably wouldn't tell me how awful my shirt is. However, he votes against all of the things that are important to me that are listed on this shirt. So like, it's still like he's not my friend. He's not inclined to be my friend anytime soon, and he's not inclined to be supportive of the people that I care about. So who's running against him? Ryan Melton. Oh my gosh. And Ryan Melton is so fabulous. He is kind. He has been vocal about the right for women to choose what to do with their bodies. He says that banning abortion puts women in a second-class citizen status, because if you can't even decide what happens with your own body, then who has authority over the property of your humanness, right? He has been vocal about the Pride community. He is a supporter of the LGBTQIA2 plus community, and has been very actively vocal in so many ways about let's advocate for human rights. He actually got in this race. Ryan Melton got in the race because basically out of the desire to save humanity, to save democracy, that after the insurrection, he just couldn't let insurrectionists and those who would support them go run uncontested. And so when there was no one stepping up to be on the ballot against Feenstra, then he was like, well, if nobody else is going to do this, I'm going to do this. And so in spite of the fact that he's got a full-time job and he's trying to raise his children and he's trying to be a good husband and he's trying to just do all the things as a good citizen, he's also running for Congress, and he totally has my support with this. He's really a good candidate. He's a good candidate and a good person and deserves our support. So I'm definitely voting for Ryan Melton for U.S. House of Representatives. Now, if you don't happen to be in my district, so if you're not here in any of these 36 counties that are painted in blue on this map, and instead you're here, Cindy Axne would be your choice for 3rd District. She is also phenomenal. She is also an advocate. Actually, all 3 of the people I'm going to tell you about. Cindy Axne is the incumbent. Now, I'm going to go back to my whole gerrymandering gripe about this for a second. The old map, I can show it to you later. I didn't pull it up, but the old map for 3rd District actually was this area. And what they did was they cut Cindy Axne, they cut her right in half. They're like, oh, you've already won for these counties over here. Well, we're going to take those counties over there out of your district, and instead we're going to give you these counties over here. And so they really just took her constituency and split it in half as best as they could. And they say, oh, we don't really do gerrymandering in Iowa. Well, I call BS on the whole no gerrymandering in Iowa. In any case, Cindy Axne has been phenomenal, and she was my representative until this next, or she is my representative until this next election cycle, because I'm over here in one of her previously represented counties. Anyway, so Cindy Axne is the one to keep for District 3. If you happen to be over here in 1st District, then you're going to go for Liz Mathis. And if you're up here in 2, then I would support Christine Bohannon. All 3 of these would be the kind of people who are going to be representing the things that are on my shirt here. All right, so this is a long ballot though. So I'm sorry this video is so long, but it's a long ballot. There's a lot of stuff to talk about. So we're going to continue talking about this stuff. Moving on to what's next. So we talked about the federal stuff, and next on the ballot is the state offices. Beginning with the very top of the state offices is the governor's office. And I'm not supposed to cuss in this video, but I just want to say effing Reynolds. Like, ugh. Okay, so currently our incumbent governor for the state of Iowa is Kim Reynolds. And what has Kim Reynolds done for Iowa? Well, Kim Reynolds has done some things. If you're in big business, she's maybe been helpful to you a bit, because she did cut some taxes and give some money back to put in the pockets of big businesses. So like if that's your people, then she might have been a bit helpful. However, some things that she's also doing, she held the legislature overtime to push this school voucher thing. So let me give me a minute to talk to you about school vouchers. So school vouchers take public dollars, take the money that we have for our public education system, and they take that money to put it into private schools. So to give people vouchers for them to attend private schools. Now, here's the challenge. If you happen to live somewhere on this map, let me go back to my map. If you happen to live somewhere on this map where there really aren't private schools, like if you're way down here in the corner or way up here in the corner or up here in this, where there really aren't any private schools, then you're just kind of out of luck, because those dollars would go to the private schools, which are going to be like in the big cities. Also, the reality of private schools is that private schools aren't held to the same standards that public schools are. Public schools have to take every kid in the community. And if that kid in the community has a learning disability, private schools can say, we don't really want to deal with learning disabilities. Or if that kid in the school has a physical disability, like if they need a ramp, or if they need a hearing device, or if they need some extra support with any kind of thing. Private schools don't have to accept that. They don't have to take you. They also don't have to take you if they just think you're just not smart enough, or you're just not white enough, or you're just not male enough, or just not female enough, or just not whatever enough. They can pick any reasons, and they don't really even have to clarify why they decided to not let you in their school. They can just say, well, we just don't think you're a good fit for our culture. And that is a problem, in my opinion, because public school, I want the public educated. I want the entire public educated. I want my kids educated. I want your kids educated. And I want everybody in the community to have an opportunity and access to education. And so taking public dollars out of public schools and putting them into private schools is just so the opposite of what Iowa has been about through the entire history of Iowa, right? So I'm definitely not in favor of Reynolds. Also, I've mentioned a little bit that I'm pro-choice, and Reynolds has also pushed for a complete abortion ban in all cases, and even against contraception. So like, who gets to decide who uses contraception? And so Reynolds is like, well, she does, because she's the governor, right? And I say no to all of that. I want somebody who's going to be on my side, who's going to support me, and who's going to support education. And so who's running against Reynolds? Deidre DeJear. So we looked at Deidre DeJear, and she is phenomenal. She is so energetic and enthusiastic, and she does this Workday Wednesday thing. I encourage you to check it out. Dejear, Dejear, Deidre Dejear. So just look her up and check out a Workday Wednesday, where she's literally going out into the community and working alongside people in a lot of different businesses. She's listening to teachers, she's listening to nurses, she's listening to CNA, she's listening to people who work with those with developmental disabilities, and those who work in construction, and those who work in retail, and those who work in restaurants, and those who work in, like, oh my gosh, I don't even know how many Workday Wednesdays I've seen her do, but she's done a lot of them. And that just really speaks to my heart as somebody who has been a worker my whole life. It gives me encouragement to hear that she's not just sitting in some ivory tower telling people what they ought to do. She's going to the ground and listening to what people are doing, and how can she make our lives better as workers and as citizens. And important to me, she's pro healthcare, she's pro choice. She's definitely the governor that I want. Oh, I forgot to mention about her commitment to reinvest in rural communities. So she knows how our rural communities are really struggling these days with just losing population, because people leave the rural communities and go to the big cities, which of course Reynolds is all about, because she's like, well, come on to the big city and we can get your private school and you can just be secluded from all the, common people. But Dejear is like, hey, I am for the common people. I am for businesses. Dejear is pro business, but she's also pro people. And that just really, I just feel like she's the governor that we need for Iowa. All right, so now I'm moving on to the next one. Okay, so Secretary of State, and this is where like not cussing is very, very difficult for me, because I am so angry. Did I mention that 10 polling sites were closed in Council Bluffs alone? I didn't go to all the towns. I don't know about how many polling sites were closed throughout the state, but I do know that a lot of polling sites were closed in my town, and I suspect they were everywhere. And I mean, you can make up some stories about why that needed to happen, but I just don't buy it. I just think it was closed because it makes it harder to vote. And I think the current Secretary of State, who is Paul Pate, needs to get fired. Fire Paul Pate. Fire Paul Pate. Fire Paul Pate. Okay, so who's running against Paul Pate? All right, so Joel Miller is running against Paul Pate, and Joel Miller, his actual tagline is "Make voting easier." Yes, let's make voting easier. Oh my gosh! So he and Eric Van Linker, just for the record, so he and Eric Van Linker were both running for Secretary of State. Joel Miller won the primary, and they both were all about making voting easier. Check this out. This is what they did. They published the absentee request form, this in the local newspaper. And so for anyone who wanted to vote and didn't know where to find the absentee ballot, or how to find the request for the absentee ballot, they made it as easy as it possible was by using those funds to put that in the newspaper, so that everybody had the application for the absentee ballot and could get it in with a big advertisement, explaining like, this is what you need to do and how to do it, and get it into us right away, and we'll get you your absentee ballot and get you supported on your right to vote. Yes, that's the kind of Secretary of State we need. Joe Miller also, so the GOP legislature cut voting days from 40 to 20, and he in his county decided that even though it was the weekend, he was going to keep his office open. So he worked weekends to allow people in the community the opportunity, the extra days to vote. I mean, it was only like a Saturday, Sunday, Monday, because one of those was Labor Day. So it gave them 5 extra days. And so for those of us who work for a living, it gave them extra days on days that maybe they would have off. And so like for those of us who don't work 7 days a week, most of the time, it gave more opportunities to be able to pick an early voting day. And so Joe Miller definitely gets my vote for Secretary of State. Okay, so next on the ballot would be the state auditor. And so our current state auditor is Rob Sands. And Rob Sands has been doing Transparency Tuesday, every Tuesday. You can go, like I see it on Facebook usually. So you can check it out on Facebook and just listen to what he's about. And you can go through and listen to all of his Transparency Tuesdays for the last, I don't know how many weeks, but lots and lots of weeks, where he'll explain. He's just very open about this is who he is, and this is what he's doing, and this is what he did in the office this week. And this is what needs to be, what we, the constituency, need to be informed about. And so he just cuts straight to whatever's up with the office. He's also super cheap on stuff, which, I mean, I think it's kind of funny how he's super cheap on stuff, but he is running for, I mean, he is currently the state auditor. So he's trying to save Iowa, a couple bucks, as he puts it. And one example of him saving Iowa a couple bucks was he did a 99 county tour. And he went to parks. He went to local parks where he wouldn't have to, where there wasn't a fee, like at so many of our communities, there's just a gazebo at the park. And instead of going and renting an office or reserving some space that costs Iowa taxpayers $50 or $100 or whatever it would cost to rent that space, he just held his county tour, 99 county tour at local parks. And you can check out his website and figure out where he went. But I just think that that is brilliant. And he is definitely my choice for state auditor. Okay, moving on to the next candidate is state treasurer. So for state treasurer, I am voting for Michael Fitzgerald. But to be honest, I really didn't look this one up that much. I mean, I did Google, I did do a search for every single thing that I'm mentioning here. And I have been trying to keep as informed as I could. But for Michael Fitzgerald, for state treasurer, what I know is that he's been the state treasurer since 1983 through 5 governors. 5 governors include several Republican governors and a couple of, or at least one Democrat governor. And all 5 of the governors have been like, yeah, he does a good job. We should keep him. And so, like, if 5 governors say he's done a good job, we should keep him, and they're like on both sides of the political spectrum, and everybody's like, yeah, he does good, we should keep him, I think we should probably keep him. So I'm voting for Michael Fitzgerald. However, as I was doing the research for this video, I did look up who's running against him, and I found Roby Smith, who's running against him. And I tell you what, I didn't spend a whole lot of time on this, but I did find that Roby Smith has served as a state senator. And he is all about deregulation. And he is all about how do we remove consumer and community protections to let big businesses do their thing. When I say do their thing, well, he says do their thing. What I hear is that like, oh yeah, we should just go ahead and let big businesses exploit us and let them exploit the consumers and the communities in which they operate. Nope. I'm not about that. I want those consumer protections. I want for consumers to be able to sue a business that does them wrong, or for a consumer or constituent to be able to hold businesses accountable. And so, yeah, I'm definitely for Fitzgerald. Okay. So moving on, what's next on the ballot is Secretary of Agriculture. Now, Secretary of Agriculture, John Norwood, has also been going throughout the counties. I think he's somewhere around, I think as of today, so today is August, he has done an open forum in somewhere around 90 of 99 counties. I don't know if he's hit all 99 of them yet, but I think by November he will have. So if you haven't had a chance to meet him, like he's probably hosting a community forum somewhere near you. Like if you Google him, you can probably find him. And he calls his office, or he calls that office, the Secretary of Agriculture, he calls it Food, Water, and Land. It's the Office of Food, Water, and Land. His focus is on clean water and healthy soil and thriving communities. He does understand the business of farming. But when I hear him talk, he spends a lot of time talking about how the business of farming really does well when it's thriving in small businesses, when it's thriving in family farms. And he's a really neat guy. I encourage you to meet him. I encourage you to talk to him. I encourage you to check him out. He's definitely got my vote for Secretary of Agriculture. But before I could really say like, hey, he's got my vote, I wanted to look up what are the choices. So I did look up the choices. And currently the Secretary of Agriculture is NAIG, NAIG. And like all of his successes that Nate reports on his website. So I'm looking at his sources, like this is his words, and everything that he seems to be calling a win seems to be defending big business farmers, even when that's putting small business farmers out of business or putting small family farms. Like if he just kind of comes in and takes over, not he, the Secretary of Agriculture, but when some big corporation comes in and takes up all the family farms in the community, Neg's like, yay, go. And I'm like, no, that's not the way I envisioned that life is supposed to be at Iowa. I like small family farms. I mean, we all like big farms too. Like I like food. Food is good. but I want food to be sustainable. Also, have you guys heard about that brain-eating amoeba in the Iowa Lake? So, like, that's under NEG's watch. Like, I really want our Secretary of Agriculture, the Office of Water, the Office of Clean Water, to be making sure our water is clean so that if we swim, we don't have some brain-eating amoeba. Ugh. I want our water to be safe to swim in, safe to fish in, safe to drink from, all of it. So, my vote is with John Norwood for Secretary of Ag. Okay, so next on the ballot is Attorney General of Iowa. And who's running for Attorney General? Well, Tom Miller is the current incumbent Attorney General. And his track record is that he's been a strong advocate for consumer protections and defending consumers and citizens, regardless of what defending them against. So he's for the people rather than the powerful, rather than the corporations and the businesses. And then also, I've mentioned that I'm pro-choice, so he is supportive of reproductive rights. So he'll follow the laws as the laws are written, even if the GOP writes some laws that are pretty awful. But his preference, his supportive, he is a believer in the right for reproductive freedom. And so I really want a attorney general that's going to fight for my right to choose what happens with my body. Okay, so who's running against Tom Miller for Attorney General? Brenna Bird is running. And so I will be honest, I didn't know Brenna Bird until I looked her up, but I did look her up and she's endorsed by Tom Cotton. And I don't know if you can hear the little slight Arkansas accent because I grew up in Arkansas in my early years. And Tom Cotton is just awful. He's just awful. He's not much better than Steve King, maybe worse. I don't know. They're pretty awful. All right, so Brenna Bird, Candela, I am for addictions being treated as a mental health and medical issue, and she is for the revenues which come from privatized prisons. As a matter of fact, prisons are supporting her candidacy. Her biggest donor actually comes from the firearms industry, which that bothers me too for Attorney General, because I would like for our Attorney General to be able to stand up. I mean, heaven forbid that we would have a shooting in which the citizens might want to hold someone accountable for that. Anyway, so I'm definitely voting for Tom Miller. Okay, moving on to the next adventure. Okay, so here's where I pull out maps, right? I have a map. I love my map. Well, maybe love isn't the right word because I don't love all these little sticky notes. But here is a map of Iowa. Ta-da! And on this map of Iowa, each one of these little these little post-it note tab things, each one of these is a district that it has an incumbent or it has a candidate, but the candidate is somebody that I would not vote for. And there is no one running against that candidate. The candidate who is running for that office goes completely uncontested. And so I'm focusing right now in this area because this is where I am. If you'd like for me to come do a video for your area, let me know. Give me a comment and I will. Though, like I said, I really don't think anybody's gonna watch this video. We'll see how it goes. So this is Pottawatomie County. And Pottawatomie County, if you can see on this map, it has several different categories. So I'm actually going to switch maps now. So civics lesson, you probably already know this, but anyway, civics lesson. So you know that the federal government has a president and then a House and a Senate, right? And so you hear like bicameral, so like both houses, the House and the Senate. So in the state of Iowa, there's a governor and then a House and a Senate also. And so that's where we're talking, that's what I'm going to be talking about next as far as who to vote for in Iowa. So I showed you this map already. Ta-da. And so you've got 4 congressional. These are the folks that go to the US House, and they will go to DC to do their job. And then for the state House and Senate, where's the state Senate? Hang on a second. Hopefully we can get this part edited out. Also, yep, it's there. Okay, I can't remember if I showed you I was voting for Melton. Melton for Iowa for this 4th district. Yeah, I'm lost. Is that it? That's it. Okay. All right, so this is that map in on my screen here, the one that I just showed you, but in smaller form. And here's Pottawatomie County. And Pottawatomie County has, as you can see, it has SD8, which is this big orange area. And this big orange area isn't up for reelection until 2024. And this little pink area, SD10, also not up for reelection until 2024. But this big yellow area, which covers Ida and Crawford, Carroll, Audubon, Shelby, and this little teeny tiny bit of yellow of Pottawatomie County, which includes Avoca and some, in the area surrounding Avoca, that is SD6. And so if you happen to live here, you could vote for the person running for SD6 or not, or if you happen to live in any of these areas. And for the record, if you live in any of these areas, everything that I have already mentioned also is on your ballot. If you live in any of these areas, actually, if you live in any of these areas, except Brian Milton is over here, and then Cindy Axney is here, and Liz Mathis is running for this district, and Christine Bohannon is running for that district. But everything that I mentioned has been covered, or it covers your area too. But now we're going to go into a little bit more detailed in this section. And so not everything from this point on will cover your ballot if you're anywhere outside of this section. However, if you want my information on outside the section, certainly call me, message me, text me, send the message, put a comment, and I will try to hook you up with the information. Okay, so what was I saying? Oh yeah, so back to this. So if you happen to live in SD6, this one, your choice is run for something or Jason Schultz. So when I say run for something, let me just throw out there that all of those districts that are uncontested, they need someone to run for those districts. They need somebody who's got this kind of shirt, somebody who's got these kind of values to be on that ballot. Otherwise, we're stuck with who we're stuck with. And that's pretty, I don't know. I think that's pretty awful. I said I wasn't going to cuss in this video. So like, this is where I start with my blah, 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 but I'm not blah, 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 blah. So there's a plug for run for something. Jason Schultz is on the ballot. He's an endorser of Ted Cruz. So if you know who Ted Cruz is and you're like, I don't want another Ted Cruz in Iowa. Well, we got another Ted Cruz in Iowa. You know them by the company they keep. He's also a big supporter of that school voucher thing that I was talking about a minute ago. So like instead of putting public schools in public, instead of putting public dollars in public schools, he wants to take public dollars and put them in private schools, which I am adamantly opposed for. He's just not the candidate I would like to vote for, but he's the only one on the ballot. So it's like either write somebody in, run for something, leave it blank. I don't know. I don't have a good choice for you on that one. Sorry. Okay, so then that's the only Senate district for this area. However, as the map shows, there are other Senate options in other places. So if you are interested, certainly let me know. And we'll go on. All right, so moving on to House District. So again, I'm focusing on Pottawatomie County right now because this is the area. So I'm basically focusing on this region. So for this region, if you live in this area, so Pottawatomie or Harrison County, then HD 15, I'm sorry, let's start with HD 11. So, because I just mentioned SD 6, which covers this area and this area. So HD 11 is this one. And so I didn't look up 12, but for HD 11, we again don't have any good choices. We have Brian Best, who is on the ballot, and he's also a supporter of that school voucher thing, and nobody's running against him. So again, you could run for something. This would be a good thing to run for. But I don't get to control whether or not you know, like run for something. Anyway, so I'm going to move on. This is already long enough. So if you live in this area of Pottawatomie County or Harrison County, there are two choices, Matt Winchittle and Bobby Fairchild. Now, the reality for this is that I'm not a super enthusiastic supporter of either. However, Bobby Fairchild is for public schools, public dollars in public schools. And so therefore, I feel like he's a better choice than Matt Winchittle. Sorry, that's a hard word for me to say, Winchittle. So it's Robert Fairchild is how it'll be listed on the ballot. So my preference for HD 15 would be Robert Fairchild, basically for that reason. HD 16, and this is my district. So I have been working very, very hard to find someone to run against Dave Seek. Dave Seek is on the ballot. Dave Seek is, in my opinion, he's gross. Like, he's misogynist, he's racist, he is not a supporter of the LGBTQIA2+ community. He has said some really hurtful, hateful, mean, and awful things publicly. And he's also in favor of that school voucher thing, even though most of his district doesn't have any private schools. So why is he in favor of that school voucher thing? Because so I don't know why, but my speculation is his why would be because he's in real estate. And if everybody leaves town because the schools closed, because the schools don't support our kids as well as they were before they got defunded, then he buys up all that real estate. And so then he owns the whole county. And I'm not in favor of that. I don't know if that's his reason. I just know that he supports the school voucher program as Reynolds was trying to push it. He's also for forced birth, and yeah, I'm smiling because otherwise I'll go into my spiel of lots of curse words, and I said I was going to keep this video clean, right? So moving on, because if I don't smile, I'll just go blah, 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 blah. Okay, so run for something, run for something, like run for something. If this is your area, we need you to run for something, please, 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 please. Okay, now 19 and 20 are right here, HD 19 and 20. So if you live in Pottawatomie County in these areas, we've covered your district, but 19 or 20 are this smaller geographic space, although it's still quite a lot of people's. And what did I do with that? This. I don't know what I do with it. I might have lost it. Okay, it's on here somewhere. Again, you can edit this out. So there we go. Okay. All right, so moving on to the next map. And so if you live in Council Bluffs, so still Pottawatomie County, If you live below the blue line, you're in HD 19. If you live above the blue line, you're in HD 20. And so HD 19, your choices are Elizabeth Christensen or Brian Segrest. And my vote here is with Elizabeth Christensen. Why would I vote for Elizabeth Christensen? Well, I mean, you see my shirt, right? Okay, so um, so Elizabeth's campaign topics or primary focus areas are transparency in taxes, so especially property taxes. So how transparent is that, and ranked choice voting, and getting other folks to run for something. And so I think those are all important, but I also feel like she's the one who is in line with my values after several conversations with her and just basically stalking her, just like not like in a creepy way, but just like her websites and public comments and stuff. Okay, and so moving on, HD 20. So for HD 20, Charlie McConkey is the current representative for HD 20, and he's amazing, and he is so good, and he is retiring, and so somebody's got to fill those shoes. And I don't know that anybody really can fill those shoes, but our choices are Josh Turek and Sarah Abduch. And for those choices, Josh Turek is incredible. He is so good. So it turns out he's a paraplegic, and so he's in a wheelchair, and he is a Paralympic champion, like a basketball champion, sorry, like he is just phenomenal. He is such a hard worker. He is such a good person with regards to, he wants to really work very hard to make sure people with disabilities are better represented. And I mean, and as a person with a disability, like he's walking the talk. That maybe wasn't the appropriate thing to say, but hopefully, I don't know. Sorry. But he really is putting it where his mouth is. Like he's or putting putting his actions, he's not just talking about it, he's living it, he's putting it into action. He is out there knocking doors and really working hard to earn people's votes and listen to the people who would be voting for him. And meanwhile, we've got Sarah Abduch, who is pro forced birth and pro school vouchers and pro so like it's like if your choices are like kind of like this, that's one thing, but when your choices are like, wow, we got Josh Turek, you got Sarah Abduch, yes, go with Josh Turek, he is amazing. Okay, all right, so then if you're in Pottawatomie County, the next thing on your ballot would be the county supervisors. So county supervisors, on the ballot, it will say something like you can vote for up to 3 county supervisors, and there's a whole list of folks on the ballot. And our choices on the ballot, there's some not good, there's some awful. And then there's Jeff Shudak. There's Jeff Shudak, and then there's like everybody else. And so while you can vote for up to 3, Jeff Shudak is asking that you just vote for him. And the reason why I want to support Jeff Shudak is because, again, like he represents more of my values than any of the other choices. But also he's been in construction for years, maybe decades, I'm not exactly sure how old he is, but he's been in construction for a long time, and he knows how to use those infrastructure dollars in a way that is going to be the most cost effective, the one that's going to be saving the taxpayers the most amount of money, basically being conscientious of the dollars that are being spent, and to put those dollars in a way that will work for more Iowans, more people in the Pottawatomie County community. And he's a super hard worker, and he really is someone who knows how to build, someone who knows how to manage infrastructure. And that's really why he's running, because he saw how the Potawatomi County supervisors were not managing infrastructure dollars that were put through with like COVID relief fund bills, and he really wants to get in there and do a better job with managing that kind of stuff. And so while you could vote for 3, I'm suggesting that you only vote for 1, for Jeff Shudak. And if everyone pulls their vote to Jeff Shudak, then he's got a much more higher probability of getting on the ballot. Okay, now for the next 3 things, the next 3 lines on your ballot, there's no choice. I mean, there's no race. There's only one person listed. And so vote for them or vote against them. I didn't take a whole lot of time to look them up, but I will use this as another plug for Run for Something. Like if they're not doing a good job, then it's, like run for something, run for their job. Okay, so then I want to move on to the next thing on the ballot is the ballot initiative. And so again, this is back to, I just mentioned county stuff, but the ballot initiative is for the entire state of Iowa. And so if you live in Iowa, this ballot initiative says, it says the right to keep and bear arms. Now, I just want to let you know that I am married to a gun owner. So there are guns in my house, multiple guns. I don't even know, 6, I think. And I come from a family of hunters who also like guns. I am not an anti-gun person. I am not a come get your guns, take your guns away person. So just kind of clarifying who I am and where I am. However, this right to bear arms is tricky. They are tricking you because what they've done is they have added this whole scrutiny to the language, which basically says that if the NRA doesn't approve of any potential future gun legislation, that it can't even be put forth in the legislature to vote. And so if you are a reasonable person, and I believe that you are, or if you know reasonable people who can fathom that there might someday be someone who writes a law that says, okay, this is a reasonable gun legislation. Like, for example, I mean, I don't know what the future holds, but in the future, there can be guns that could be more dangerous or ammunition that is more dangerous than what we currently have. And if the NRA is writing a law that says, no future ever, any legislation can ever get passed, that's not the kind of world we want to live in. It's not the kind of world I want to live in. So I don't know for sure that the NRA wrote the amendment, but they're trying to put it in our amendment, in our Iowa Constitution. So I'm guessing that the NRA wrote this to directly enshrine into Iowa's Constitution that there will be no limits, no legislation, and no regulation ever to gun ownership. Okay, so again, I mentioned, like, how do I find out about whether something is something I want to support or not? I look at who else is supporting it or not. Have they done their homework? Like, if I don't have time to do all my homework and teachers did their homework, can I look at what the teacher said? Can I look at what somebody else said? So I did look this up it's on Ballotpedia. So if you want to look it up yourself on Ballotpedia, that's a great place, a great resource to check it out. So on Ballotpedia, it says that there are 2 senators, and I'm not even going to list their names. Probably their pockets are lined by the NRA. I didn't get deep into that, but there are 2 senators, and I don't mean like senators that go to the United States Senate, but senators that go to the Des Moines. And I already mentioned that some of them are people that I wouldn't want to vote for anyway. So there are 2 senators, and the NRA support this bill. Who opposes this bill? Everybody else. There's a huge line of people who oppose this bill. So I'm going to rattle this off real quick. Sorry that this takes so long, but here we go. So the American Association of the University of Women of Iowa, the Americans for Democratic Action Iowa, Amnesty International of Iowa. I should just show it. Okay, so that whole list plus a couple of people on this list and plus a couple of people on the next page too, or not people, organizations. So Catholic Peace, okay, sorry, Amnesty International of Iowa, Brady United Against Gun Violence Iowa Chapter, Catholic Peace Ministry, Common Good Iowa, Des Moines Faith Committee for Peace, Dubuque Coalition for Nonviolence, Episcopal Diocese of Iowa, Franciscan Peace Centers of St. Francis and Clinton, Great Plains Action Society, Interfaith Alliance of Iowa, Iowa Alliance for Retired Americans, Iowa Catholic Conference, Iowa Citizens Action Network, Iowa Coalition Against Domestic Violence, Iowa Coalition Against Sexual Assault, Iowa Coalition for Collective Change, Iowa Mental Health Advocacy, Iowa Unitarian Universalist Witness Advocacy Network, Iowans for Gun Safety, Iowa's for Responsible Gun Laws, League of Women Voters of Iowa, March for Our Lives of Iowa, Methodist Federation for Social Action of Iowa, Moms Demand Action of Cedar Rapids, Moms Demand Action of Iowa, No Justice, No Peace, Planned Parenthood Advocates of Iowa, Plymouth United Church of Christ Peace and Justice Committee, Progress Iowa, Women's International League for Peace and Freedom of Des Moines. And by the time you see this video, there'll probably be more organizations who are also subscribed to being against this law. Check them out. Talk to the people that you trust and say, okay, well, who do you, what do you think about it? Talk to the gun owners that you trust and see if they've done their homework. Meanwhile, the NRA is sending letters out to get gun owners riled up and to the polls to support this constitutional amendment. And I'm asking that you consider, like, what do they support and what do you support? Okay, and vote no on that ballot initiative. Because, like, because love is love, right? All right, so moving on to the next one. Okay, so the next thing I've got that I'm aware of on the ballot for this upcoming election in November 2022, which is October 2022, remember, because I want you to vote early in October, is to there's a thing that says you want to retain. I should have not closed that. Okay, let me pause. Okay, just edit all this boring stuff out. Oh, wait. Okay, so then pick it up back here. So at the bottom of our ballot, it will also say, shall the following district judges be retained in office? And so this is a copy of, this is that sample ballot from before. So these judges aren't necessarily even still present, and they're not on the ballot this year that I'm aware. But the ones that will be listed on the ballot are McDermott and Oxley. And as I mentioned before, I am in support of women and people with uterus having the right to choose what they would choose for their own bodies. And both McDermott and Oxley do not support that. They do not, they voted specifically against the ability for a person to choose whether or not to choose their healthcare decisions, and that would include abortion. And they said, no, you don't have the right to make your own healthcare decisions. And so I can do another video on why do I support the right to choose, but I think this video is already long enough, so I won't do that right now. Maybe it'll be, in the comments or one of these, there'll be a little link that says it's right here. So no to McDermott and no to Oxley. And then also no to Paul Ehlers. So that's spelled A-H-L-E-R-S. I'm not sure if I'm saying it correctly, but no to Paul Ehlers for the same reason, because he is in favor of forced birth. And I do not want that type of judge on my court if I have to ever be faced with the charge of what did I do? There's another vote. There's another judge. Hang on. Let me say that. Let me back that up. So, so on the next part of the ballot is, do you want to? Did I already close that? I did, didn't I? Okay. Let me start over. Starting over again. Not completely, but just in the whole like. Okay, so on the next part of the ballot, it will say, for the courts, it will say, do you, oops, I don't. This again is a 2018 ballot. This ballot that I'm showing you as a sample ballot is not accurate, but it will say judicial ballot. Notice to voters, vote on all names by filling in the appropriate oval below each name. And then it will say something like for the Iowa Supreme Court, instead of saying Court of Appeals, it'll say for the Iowa Supreme Court, and it will say, shall the following judges of the court of, or for the Iowa Supreme Court be retained in office? So I know I didn't read that exactly because I'm trying to give you the information of what will be on your 2022 ballot. And then it will have some names which will not be these names. And two of the names that will be listed under Court of Appeals will be McDermott. And the answer to that is no. So to fill in the answer, no. And the reason why is because he voted that Iowa's constitution does not protect the right for people to make their own healthcare decisions, including the right for abortion if they should need it. Also, Oxley, Oxley, same reason to vote no for Oxley. So you'll fill in the no bubble and fill in the no bubble for Oxley and for McDermott. And same reason, because she does not support a person with a uterus to make their own healthcare decisions. And then under Iowa Supreme Court, it will say Court of Appeals. And for that, Paul Ehlers, it's spelled Ahlers, also vote no for the same reason, that he does not support the right for a person to access their own healthcare decisions or to be responsible for their own healthcare decisions. And so with the other ones, I did look up Gina Batting, but I did not find reason to support nor oppose her. So I would just, at this point, I'm in favor of keeping Gina Batting, but that I don't really know one way. I don't really know one way or the other. Okay, so I think that covers all of the ballot. If you live in the general area of Pottawatomie County, so that would be for stop share and new share. So if you're down in this region, I think we covered a big chunk of your ballot. Now, if you're in Harrison or Audubon or Shelby or Carroll or Mills or Fremont, I did not cover all of your county supervisors, county auditor, stuff like that. For Mills and Fremont County, I don't know of you having many choices. I think, again, it's going to be very similar to your county choices are you can either vote for or not whoever's on it, but you don't have multiple choices. And that's true for Harrison as well. I haven't dug into Shelby, Audubon, and Carroll's ballot, but if you'd like for me to, then leave me a message, say, please look up my ballot and give me the rest of the information, and I will do that for you. If you would like for me to come to your region and show you your county auditor's office, let me know that. If you would like to encourage people to get $20 by counting the number of times I say the F word in the other video, then you can do that. You can send them to the other video. And if only 3 people watch the video, then, you know, I'm good for $60. If more than 3 people watch the video, then I will do $20 a week. I'll do a drawing and do $20 a week to whoever gets closest to the number of times I said it, or whatever the case is. And I'll do $20 a week up until the election. So thank you so much for taking this time to watch this video. I know it was really long. Hopefully it was helpful, educational, informative, and worth your time. And have a great rest of your day. Thanks. Bye-bye.